Welcome to a Degenerate Friday edition of Bury Your Bookie. I'm Jeff DeForest. Very happy to have you with us. We normally feature the professor on a day like today, but he got some distressing news in terms of his gambling endeavors. They just sent him on whatever app it is that he's betting these Australian rules football games on, which he's been red hot, riding the backs of the Magpies as he's been hitting week after week after week, regardless of the enormity of the spreads that he's having to overcome. Just coming out on top. And you know what happens, and it's unfortunate that this is the way casinos were not built on the notion that the players were winning. The odds are normally prohibitive and stacked very much against you over the long haul. And he got one of these memes because he's been hitting every game that was just like this. He got the old cutoff thing. So all of a sudden, his lines went down. He wasn't able to make any wagers on Australian rules football. And while he's trying to straighten that out, we're here with an attempt to help you bury your bookie. So we won't have the Australian rules football pick because our man has been cut off. After and maybe that's because you guys are following his recommendations every week and thinking, as ridiculous as this seems, if you're hitting on something, what difference does it make? You could bet whether one of two roaches was going to make its way into the drain in your sink, which one was going to run faster, as if it was a match race with Seabiscuit and War Admiral. And if you're winning, what do you care what it is? It sure is a pleasant differential and departure from what usually takes place, which is the separation of the gambler from his or her money. Now, if you were backing OKC, wow, unbelievable result last night. Gets back into the theory, and I just, for some reason, you think about doing this, and by the time you actually have the balls evolved to go ahead and make a move and put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, usually the circumstance, it's too late. We've talked about this on the show before, where you're too late to the party as a degenerate gambler, and by the time you get on something, it's the same thing. It happens with the stock market, a form of gambling, where everybody's cashing big on some stock, and then by the time you get there, the CEO is involved in some disgraceful incident, and the stock tumbles, and you lose all of your money while everybody else got fat and got rich. And we've been touting this theory about wait till a team, it doesn't matter if you're rooting for them or not, if you have any rooting interest in it, as a fan, just strictly as a business proposition. Wait till a team in the NBA, especially, appears to be hopelessly out of the ballgame. And if you've been doing this throughout the postseason, the odds that you would have received would have been so overwhelmingly favorable that even if it was an infrequent circumstance, you'd be way ahead of the game. What I mean is these teams coming back from 20 points down, and especially in the case of the Indiana Pacers, where they appear to be hopelessly out of this thing. Now, we talked about the series with Mike Jones yesterday here on the show, and routinely the knee-jerk snap reaction to anybody asking you, and it was probably few and far between that anybody even gave a shit about this series, because Oklahoma City was assumed to be vastly superior to the Indiana Pacers or any of the teams. Had the Knicks held on against the Pacers and found a way to win that series, they would have been also overwhelming underdogs going against the Oklahoma City Thunder, who appear to be a juggernaut. The turnover creation that they're capable of, we saw it in evidence in the first half last night, as you had Indiana commit 19 first half turnovers on a pace for 38 for the game. Now, they cleaned it up, so to speak. I don't know what Rick Carlisle drew up on the grease board at halftime, but they went from turning the ball over on virtually every other possession to just 5 turnovers in the second half as they started to jack up threes at an incredible percentage. But all that being said, nobody gave him a chance. The knee-jerk reaction was immediately Oklahoma City in 5. Some were bold enough to go ahead and predict the sweep. Those people are feeling particularly painful this morning as they wake up and see their money evaporating into smoke. And the idea that Indiana getting 9.5 points was going to win straight up on the money line in game one seemed far-fetched. And then beyond that, in-game betting, I don't know what kind of price. We weren't able to calculate it. What kind of number could you have received? And I didn't check this out during the game, but it's something you really have to take a look at. When they were down, was it 15 in the fourth quarter? What kind of money line price could you have received on the Indiana Pacers? They're still down 6, 7, 8 throughout most of the late going in the fourth quarter, from maybe the 5, 6 minute mark on in until they started shaving that margin even more closely. Finally, it got to be three. Then it got to be two. Then it got to be one. And bingo, Halliburton, who was relatively quiet all night long, hits yet another game winning shot. He's had either a game tying or game winning buzzer type shot in all four series that the Indiana Pacers have played so far in the postseason. Halliburton. Now, he wasn't having a strong game. Guy at that point was 5 for 12 from the field, had 12 points. A Carlisle strategy of not calling a timeout in that spot and allowing the Oklahoma City Thunder to set their defense a little bit and force you to inbound the basketball. Instead, you're in a little bit of a mad scramble running up the court. You had to be very deflated and maybe a little bit on your heels after SGA. It was SGA, I believe, that missed that last shot. It's rebounded with 7 seconds to go. Enough time to do something, but not necessarily a ton of time either to start passing the ball around and looking for a wide open guy. Halliburton gets the ball in traffic. Two guys go falling backwards as they're trying to contest his shot, and they don't want to put him on the stripe, where no doubt he would have knocked down. Well, I mean, the chances that he would have missed both and not at least sent the game into overtime would have been extremely prohibitive. And sure enough, the shot goes in. So he ends up 6 for 13 with 14 points and yet another heroic effort. And all those people that had Oklahoma City are eating dust. Dust. People willing to lay 9.5 points. So I don't know what you could have received. I imagine this would have been a dream degenerate situation. And it's the kind of thing that never happens to me. I don't know about you, where you just decide you're going to go all in on something. It's all or nothing. This is it. This is going to be your last wager lifetime if you go down in flames. You take Indiana with the points, Indiana on the money line before the game. Now, if you took them in the first half, you got trounced because they were down 12 points at halftime. And so, regardless of how you bet that, whether it was straight up or with the points, you were going to lose that wager. But that being said, if you continued to press the idea that they were going to win the game all the way through to where you had to be getting 15 or 20 to 1 when they were down 15 in the fourth quarter on the money line for Indiana to come back and win outright straight up. And had you done that with even a minor denomination and strung that all together, you probably could have called in work today and told them to take this job and shove it because you would have made a hell of a score. But who has the balls? Who has the chutzpah to do that? And you have to do it in the right spot because 99 times out of 100, well, you can't say that because Indiana's now done it on several occasions in the postseason. So you're looking at just an insurmountable lead late in a ball game in the NBA now, and you almost always have to take a position against it, or so it seems. And if you do, you only have to win probably 1 out of 20 times to be breaking even. If it happens like it has with the frequency that we've seen in these NBA postseason games, my God, Knicks had a couple of those in the first 2 games against Boston. Way ahead. You would be way ahead. I mean, it might be enough to make up for your lifetime losses if you were parlaying this theory, which, of course, we have yet to do with our own money. So hopefully you guys are making money off that. But it was a shocker and definitely put a little shadow of doubt into the minds of those that thought that Oklahoma City was going to run away with it. The interesting part of the game was everybody would agree, Oklahoma City, the common narrative was, well, they come at you in waves. It's not just SGA. He's going to lead them, but they bring all these guys off the bench. They have deep depth, as Yogi Berra would say, and that's going to be overwhelming for the Indiana Pacers, who I guess lost on many of the experts. And I don't know why we didn't think of this, but doesn't Indiana come at you in waves and can win without Halliburton on his best night? Which he was not, and they ended up with 6 guys in double figures in the ball game last night. So once they got over that atrocity, the fact that they were hanging around at halftime made you think that they were in there with a shot, because by all rights, with 19 turnovers in the first half, you would have thought that they'd be down 20 points and find themselves in a spot that there was just no way out of, a deep abyss on the scoreboard. They did shoot very well from 3-point range, so that was something that may have been overlooked as well by all of these experts. Be interesting to see. I would imagine people come right back and install. I didn't see the number on the game on Sunday, but I'm thinking it's probably in that same range, in spite of the fact that we just saw this monumental collapse on the part of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now a 1-0 advantage and stealing away home court advantage for the series by the Indiana Pacers, who have been nothing but dynamite in that category all throughout the postseason. Cats and the Oilers do it again tonight. That should be an interesting game. There wasn't much to separate the two teams in game number one. NHL Stanley Cup Playoffs. The Oilers with an overtime victory on an oddball power play penalty, where and it's debatable whether this should even be a rule with the obtuse bounces and abstract nature of the way the puck flies off of sticks. In this case, defenseman for the Florida Panthers just shovels one into the crowd. Certainly, it was not intentional. As a delay of game, the situation didn't call for that. It's an overtime with less than 2 minutes to go in the opening overtime period. Dead even. Both teams had plenty of scoring chances. Both goalies came up big in spots. And getting on the power play, though, Edmonton was starting to gather a little bit of momentum at that point in the game. And they get on the power play, McDavid to Draisaitl, and they win that. But very many opportunities went by the board there for the Florida Panthers, especially early in the overtime period. They might have sat on their lead a little bit when they got up 3-1. So what does that do for the game tonight? Now, we, as you guys may know, if you've been following the show, originate in South Florida. The Panthers are our home team. They've been to 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. They've been extremely resilient ever since they made the deal to get Matt Tkachuk. They were the cardiac kids a couple of years ago when they won the President's Trophy, but then lost in the final round to the Las Vegas Golden Knights. They showed that same kind of tenacity throughout the regular season last year and all throughout the postseason. And this year, they've been on the road for the first game of every series as the lower seed in each of the series that they've played, and not having as good of a record as Edmonton did in the regular season, the deciphering factor in who had home ice advantage. Interesting proposition tonight. Your temptation, I would think, would be to lean a little bit towards the Florida Panthers, because they should have gone into this game tonight or should go into it tonight feeling like, hey, we literally gave one away. We had a big opportunity to go up 1-0 in this series and do the same thing we did to Edmonton last year, put them in a deep hole right away at the start, only this time doing it on the road. But the even Steven nature of the way game one was contested, and they did play 2 games in a regular season, which had far less significance, but nonetheless, both were won by the Florida Panthers by a single goal. So these two teams have demonstrated, at least through 3 games that they've played head-to-head, that there's very little differential between the two teams in terms of talent overall and the approach to the game. You would think that Paul Maurice might have a little bit of an edge with his experience over Knobloch, the coach of the Edmonton Oilers. We spoke with a gentleman who would be in the know, a very deep and astute hockey analyst, Bill Lindsay, who used to be with the Panthers when they made their 95-96 run to the Stanley Cup final. Had a great goal, by the way. And a real gentleman. He's been the color analyst for the Panthers, either on radio or TV, for the last 25 years or so. Really knows his stuff. And he was saying that Knobloch, if he had one inclination that indicated that he was not feeling very certain about the outcome of the game, it was his tendency to overuse the combination of McDavid and Draisaitl at the same time. Now, they are on the same line to start the game. They are in tandem on a power play, but Lindsay was saying that if you see them out there even more often than usual, their usual numbers in the regular season, that it's a sign that Knobloch is kind of squeezing his rear end a little bit and might be getting out coached, because that's a mistake to go away from his usual tendencies. That was anything but the case, though, in this game, as McDavid was a factor on both of the Draisaitl goals, and especially the one in overtime where he shoots the puck right through the crease there and puts it on Draisaitl's stick, who's wide open on the other side of the net. Very little to separate the two. We told you and recommended, incorrectly so, that you take a sniff with the Panthers getting a price in the opening game, and in the series, the Panthers at plus 110 seem like the likely proposition. But as we say, every game in the postseason is pivotal. And the Panthers either go home after this game tonight with a 1-1 and home ice advantage ledger going in the postseason for the Stanley Cup repeat, or they find themselves in a hole and starting to think along the lines of must win because going down 3-0, even though, well, look, in the end, Edmonton lost. So even though they forced a game 7, you're still looking at a very prohibitive chance of coming back and winning the series after going down 3-0. So a pivotal game tonight. I'm going to think the Panthers play very well, but the Edmonton Oilers have been making me very nervous about the repeat all throughout the postseason, watching them in their various playoff sets coming in. Thinking Edmonton maybe holds home serve again tonight, goes up 2-0. But from a betting standpoint, a toss-up. I mean, all we can do on that one is wish you luck. All right, a lot of baseball taking place over the weekend. Have the Belmont Stakes. Did have a good conversation with the man who's going to be calling the Belmont Stakes for Fox Television. He's the Saratoga regular track announcer now, Frank Miramonte, good friend of mine for a long time. Astute horse racing handicapper, does a great job, has a tremendous insight into all aspects of handicapping races, especially like the Belmont Stakes. He couldn't get himself away from sovereignty. Seems to be the pick of most of the experts. And the general consensus is along the lines of this is strictly a 3-horse race. They are discounting Rodriguez, who won the Wood Memorial for Bob Baffert, and then was scratched out of the Derby. I think may have been talked about at least as a possibility for the Preakness. Did not run there either. So comes in well rested as compared to all of the others that are contenders in this race. I don't know if any of the new shooters, so to speak, have any kind of a chance, but almost everybody seems to be of the opinion that it's either sovereignty, journalism, who of course won the Preakness, and now we get a chance to see those two square off again, or Baeza, who was flying. Baeza was flying at the end of the Kentucky Derby. I don't know what happened to this horse at the beginning of the race. It was search warrant time. Barnaby Jones, as Miramonte would say, as you really had to go to some extent to find him. And then this horse is flying at the end. So I think at 1.25 miles in there with a legitimate shot over the Saratoga surface. We don't know how these horses will take to that particular track. I'm thinking that journalism certainly is going to be a big factor in this race. I can't imagine Umberto Rispoli getting him the kind of trouble jackpot that he was in both, surprisingly, the Santa Anita Derby with a field of 5 and the Kentucky Derby with a field of 20. Did 19 go post with there? Yeah, may have been, but 19 or 20 horses. And I can't see him getting in that kind of a jackpot in this race. So with that late kick that he has, certainly can't be discounted. And it does appear that those 3 horses stand out and lay over the rest of the field. So good luck with your wagers. Maybe a time to go into a pick 5 or some configuration that goes horizontally instead of vertically. But yeah, the exotics on the Belmont Stakes, if those 3 horses, if 2 of them are involved in exactas and trifectas, are going to be pretty short. So good luck with your wagers there. You might want to expand and extrapolate out and dive into a pick 5, which on those kind of days with the big pools that they have, even if it's a gagging sea of chalk, usually you'll find there has to be some upset, I would think, along the way in the first 4 races of the sequence. So do some handicapping and take a shot with that. And if you do hit and anything but the chalk comes in, you're going to get a huge overlay payoff from what it would normally get back to you if you happen to hit a pick 5 with the same odds configurations. All right. Thanks, people, for tuning in. Have a great weekend, everybody. Looking forward to that hockey game tonight. Toss-up. Sorry, I don't know that with any conviction I could give you a pick on a game or the series. We do have a rooting interest, of course, here in South Florida. With the Florida Panthers. So I'd like to see them bounce back, but I'm not sure that's in the stars. So good luck with your wagering tonight on that one. And we will see you Monday with the next edition. Imagine the professor got cut off on Australian rules football. The next edition of Bury Your Bookie.